Is magic real then, or is it just an optical illusion?
Magic is in the eye of the beholder, really. What is magic? So for me, I think magic is almost a mindset. I'm kind of seeking magic all of the time.
Tell me, Keith, how can we hack our own brains to help ourselves sleep better?
The first thing I say to people is go on a full news detox. It's almost always bad news we're hearing now, and that's affect their mindset tremendously.
What about alcohol or drugs? I am at the stage of life where I'm going, should I just give this up entirely? If I have a glass of wine, it affects my sleep that night.
Look, if you want to get deep delta brainwave sleep, you shouldn't be drinking.
Hello and welcome back to the Lower Down Experience podcast. I am thrilled today to welcome a truly remarkable guest, Keith Barry. Keith is a world-renowned mentalist. That's a mad
It's a weird
term,
title,
isn't it?
I know.
Hypnotist and magician who has mesmerised audiences across the globe with his incredible mind-reading abilities, psychological illusions and captivating performances. And I would have been an absolute critic, but you approached me at an event this year, actually, the Future Beauty Show, and you did something on me, and I was just like, how did you do that?
We'll resurface that clip and we'll play it into this,
absolutely,
right?
Let's do that. So from starring his own television specials to appearing on major shows like The Ellen Show and The Late Late Show, Keith has become a household name in the world of magic and mentalism. Beyond entertainment, he's also a motivational speaker and a consultant, helping people to unlock the power of their minds. Get ready to dive into the fascinating world of the human mind as we chat to Keith Barry.
Thanks for that long introduction, but I quite liked it. Yeah, mentalist is a weird term.
It is. So just, what do you do, Keith, for anyone out there who may not understand what a mentalist is? Like, back in school, you were a mentalist if you were
or you were
a bit mad. Yeah. So go on, tell me what you do.
So I suppose from a branding perspective, right, I'm known now as a brain hacker. But from my own perspective, I do a lot of different things, and that's why sometimes people get confused by my brand, even though I'm not confused. So I suppose the easiest way to explain it is to split my brand into two. So one is I hack brains for fun, fill stages, theatres, purely for fun. So a couple of nights ago, I was in Castlebar, TF Royal, and it was just hacking brains, getting inside people's heads and having the crack. And then 50% of my work is working with companies, corporations, and individuals around the world, hacking their brains to create meaningful, sustainable change inside their mindset. And that can be for a number of different reasons and issues. Generally with corporations, is to motivate their staff. And if it's a one-to-one scenario, it can be pretty much anything. So it could be help people give up smoking. It can be to help them overcome anxiety, stress. It can be to help them read a room from an influence standpoint. So in other words, non-verbal communication tactics. We can talk a little bit about that. Reading micro-expressions basically, and how to know when somebody's stressed or how to know what they're thinking without them saying a single word.
Is that what you did to me in the Future Beauty Show?
That was brain hacking just for fun. Yeah, I can't remember what the word was, but we were thinking of something and I extracted it.
How do you do that? By just looking at me?
Yeah, but that's what I do. I'm reading non-verbal communication signals. So everybody's leaking information non-verbally. So micro-expressions happen in kind of 1/16 of a second. So we all leak. And my job for fun is when people leak is just, plot around in there and try and extract the thought. And then for, meaningful change is to actually share with people the knowledge that I've accumulated over the last 34 years now, I suppose I've been doing this, and just tweaking whatever's going on internally, So that's why, I've worked with a lot of different athletes and helping them with their mindset as well. Everybody from Olympians right through to current rugby players,
Yeah. Wow, it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, look, but it's a learned skill. Here's the crazy thing, I started when I was 14 and I started learning hypnosis and a lot of magic back then, so just close-up magic. Now, I had been doing magic since I was 5, but the turning point for me was when I was 14 when I bought a little pamphlet on hypnosis called Practical Hypnotism by E. Wolf. And I just started to learn the techniques in that book and started to practice. And I remember I hypnotized David Burke in our Irish class. We were only 14 in secondary school. And I got him to just do the classic, get up and be a chicken in front of the class. But it worked. And I was sitting there going, what's going on here? But he did it to such an extent, he got detention. And I knew it was real then. That was the moment I realized hypnosis is real. And not only did he get detention, I gave him the pamphlet on hypnosis. And he learned it. And now he's a professional hypnotherapist down in Waterford. We're still great friends. We go fishing all the time. And so that changed the outcome of both of our lives, that one pamphlet, you know.
And is magic real then, or is it just an optical illusion?
So look, you know, with close-up magic, you know, ultimately what you're doing is creating an illusion of a piece of magic. But, you know, is magic real is a very broad question, because magic is in the eye of the beholder, really. What is magic? You know, you have to define magic. So for me, I think magic is almost a mindset. So I look for magic everywhere. I have this mantra in my head that I'm infinitely curious about the world. So I'm kind of seeking magic all of the time. Is it real? Who knows? But for me, yeah, the magic isn't just, like, honestly, like, this sounds cliche, but for me, with the busyness of everyday life and even my own life, just going for a swim in the sea, like, I find that magical, you know? So the magic that I do is, you know, when it comes to entertainment, it is an illusion. Now, it's a mixture of different things, and that's where people get confused, because I'm putting in real, like, if you think of it like this, hypnosis is real magic, because ultimately, there's no trick to it. I'm literally getting inside somebody's brain, changing the neurology of their brain, and ultimately they have an outcome which feels magical to them. So, for example, if you've been on 40 cigarettes a day and you come and meet me and then I get you off those cigarettes, that's a magical experience for that person. If you've had anxiety for your whole life, for 40 years, 50 years, 30 years, 20 years, whatever it's been, and then I meet you, and then within an hour, you have no anxiety and you never have it again. That's magic. So from that standpoint, I think that element of what I do is magical. But when I seek for magic for myself, I'm not looking for an entertainer, even though I love entertainment. I'm looking for just magic in nature, and magic with my kids and my wife, and magical experiences, you know?
Yeah. And how did you get to where you are today in terms of what you know? Did you go, is there a degree in what you do, or what?
It's interesting. Like, so not too many people have asked me that. And truth be told is, the quick answer to that is, got a magic set when I was 5, and that got me into magic. So, and I got like very adept at magic very early. So we'd get a magic set every Christmas and just practice magic. Then when I was 14, I got the book that I just mentioned, and that got me into hypnosis. Then when my girlfriend was in college with me, so I was studying chemistry, science, and she was studying psychology, I started to read her psychology books. So that's when I brought in the psychology elements. Now I was into psychology, hypnosis, magic.
And a bit of chemistry.
And a bit of chemistry thrown in then as well. I'm actually a cosmetic scientist by trade. I think I might mention that to you. So I actually used to work just down the road from here.
Did you?
In Oriflame.
Okay.
So Oriflame was just around the corner from where we are now, in Sandyford. So I'm a cosmetic scientist by trade. I used to invent makeup. And I did that for 2.5 years. And then I jumped full time into what I do. And then I started to mix neurolinguistic programming in. And that can get confusing for people, because the entertainment part of what I do, I'm mixing a lot of techniques. So sometimes it's deception, but you don't know that it's deception. Sometimes it's real. So I'm really using real hypnotic techniques and linguistic techniques. And sometimes it's influence, which is real. Sometimes it's NLP, which is real. And then sometimes it's full-blown fakery, but you don't know.
What's
so I
NLP?
mix neurolinguistic programming.
Oh, right, okay.
So it's a language model. And ultimately, again, it's a lot of how you can read somebody's physicality and read, again, their eye accessing cues and things like that. So in other words, trying to figure out what they're thinking without them saying a single word.
So are your wife and kids bunched when they're lying to you, because you can just tell?
Well, you know, the funny thing is, I've kind of shared a lot with my kids at a very young age. So they're on to me, I'm on to them. So we've got this kind of spiral now in the household where everyone's on to everybody. So it's kind of difficult. You know, and my wife, don't forget, is like my girlfriend then was my wife. Now she was studying
you've been
psychology.
with her that long?
Yeah, since I'm 17 and she's 16.
That's
so
class, that's the same as me.
31 years. It's scary, isn't it, when you say that? Makes you feel old. But ultimately, so she's basically a psychologist. So we've got an interesting household, that's for sure.
So.
But like my daughter does say, how can you see into my soul? Because I can particularly figure out when she's lying, when she's being mischievous. He's a little bit harder to read, but I'm getting better at reading him. And then me and Ray just have this weird relationship where we can actually finish each other's sentences at this stage, you know, because we've been together for so long.
And what do people, I suppose, when they reach out to you for help, what's the most, you know, you say you're dealing with sportsmen, you're dealing with corporations. What is the thing that people are most suffering from or that need the most help with?
Pre-pandemic, it was a mixed bag, right? So it was a lot of different things. And look, I'll take a step back just to say, like years ago, I used to do a lot of like stop smoking and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, in the past kind of 6 years, I do specify just mainly with business people, right? So to help business people with their mindset and athletes. So rather than kind of everyday things, that's where my speciality now lies, simply because I don't have time to get to everybody and do everything that I need to do. But since the pandemic, and I know we're going to talk about the book in a minute, but like it is important that I just tell the truth. Since the pandemic, it's sleep. People are really struggling with sleep. And I've actually really examined this, even since I wrote the book. I've examined this a lot in my head as to why people are struggling with their sleep since the pandemic. And I think it's a lot of different reasons, but I'm questioning myself even as to whether I'm becoming a bit of a conspiracy theorist with this, because look, many of the reasons are the reasons that we would know. So we know that it's too much white light, too much blue light. So our minds don't know the difference between, you know, night and day. Look, I know we're in a kind of a fake environment right now, meaning it's bright outside and we're recording a podcast and we're in a studio, so there's lights all around us.
Yeah.
But our minds now don't really know what time of day or night it is. And then when we get to nighttime, we're still on the screens and we know this, right? So our circadian rhythms are knocked out of whack. We don't know whether it's night or day. And that's kind of across the board. There's just too much light, okay? Fake light. Now, so that's a reason. And then you've got the stress of modern day life. Like everybody's just so busy being busy and trying to get to one thing, get to another thing. Social media has a lot to do with it. Now, I'm a big thinker in this space, like as in people need to really understand and really take a step back, actually, and understand everything that they see and hear goes in subconsciously and can never be unseen or unheard. So the damage that people are doing to themselves subconsciously by just simply mindlessly scrolling on TikTok or whatever it is and absorbing negative news, even if it's just like, for a recent example about the hurricane that hit over in Florida, like people are like obsessed with watching that, right? What's happening and how many people are dead and is it as destructive as it was? That's all going in subconsciously. And then when you're trying to sleep, it's all affecting the neurology of your brain as you try to ease yourself into sleep. So that's a problem. But then when I mentioned kind of, and that's all like fact, right? There's no debate about that. Like there's nobody that can actually debate me about that.
No.
I mean, it's real. But then the part that I've thought about deeply recently, just like, I don't know, like it's just a thing in my head. I'm just wondering if the vaccines may have something to do with it, because of the influx that I've had since the pandemic. Like I got vaccinated, so each to their own. So I'm not anti-vaccine.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, have the vaccines affected people's physiology and neurology to the extent that that may affect people's sleep right now? The answer to that, I don't know. Like I don't know. But I think potentially the vaccines might have something to do with it as well. So then there's a lot going on that people have to try and figure out in order to gain meaningful sleep, because lack of sleep, you know, it affects us all in different ways, but a lot of people just get cranky, other people get sick from it. So, you know, and some people just aren't productive with the lack of sleep. So it's a problem. And that's the biggest problem that I'm finding right now, you know.
When I'm out talking to people, I say the most important thing that people can do is sleep.
Yeah.
And then people are like, yeah, I know that, but like, how do I actually get to sleep? Because like that, we're consuming news all the time that's miserable. It may have been the 6 o'clock news back when we were growing up, and you either could switch it on the TV or not. But now, whenever you're on your phone and you look at one thing and it feeds you another bit of piece of information about that. So that's the difficulty. So tell me, Keith, how can we hack our own brains to help ourselves sleep better? Without giving your entire book away.
No, well, there's a lot. but before we hack our brains, right? Let's forget about the book for a moment, right? I mean, look, everyone's selling something, right? So yeah, I'm selling a book. But like, let's forget about the book for a moment. Like the first thing I say to people, if you're struggling with your sleep, or if you're just struggling with anxiety, and it seems now, and you'll know this, right, from your work, everyone's like overwhelmed with anxiety, and it's really coming out in our children. Like I've got kids, luckily, like they seem pretty stable, but like in an overall context, I'm getting a lot of emails from parents concerned with their kids having social anxiety. Eating disorders are huge now, both male and female in teenagers. And the first thing I say to people is go on a full news detox for minimum a month. And people find that really hard to do, Laura, these days. And I'm like, well, it's not that hard. So if you get my phone, like I actually have my phone here, right? So if I open up my phone, I can't see without my reading glasses, so you'll see me squinting.
That's a sign of old age now, Keith. I have the reading glasses here. I couldn't read your introduction without
No,
them.
yeah. I should have put the contacts in. So ultimately, okay, I've got my social media apps there, right?
Yeah.
So I use those. I use them for business. But ultimately, there's no news apps on my phone. I've deleted off. I used to have Sky News. Sky News is gone. I have Twitter, right? But Twitter's not on my phone. So Twitter's gone from my phone. Sky News is gone from my phone. RTE.ie is gone from my phone. I have no news apps on my phone. So the first thing I say to people is delete off all the news apps off your phone. People get horrified by this, by the way. Like, it seems like everybody has this FOMO, fear of missing out. I'm like, you don't need to be listening to the news all day, every day. And then other people say, and they'll have an argument with you about this, right? You have to have compassion about what's going on in the world. You must know what's going on in the world. You have to have compassion. Why? Tell me why. Because I'll tell you why. The lens right now, I'll give you a prime example. Lens right now, it was on the hurricane for a moment, but it's going to go back to what's going on in Israel. But people forget, a year and a half ago, the lens was on the Ukraine. That lens is gone now. It's just shifted to something else. And it's Israel, and everybody's hearts are torn out about Israel. But people have forgotten that lens could as easily be on Boko Haram in Africa, who are still doing what they're doing, and we won't get into it now, but we all know that they're a horrific organization. But that lens could also be on another part of the world where horrific things are happening. So why do we feel the need to give all of these different spaces our energy? I have compassion for humanity in general. Of course we do. But do we need to be absorbing this mentally and taking the weight of the world on our shoulders all of the time? I mean, I drove down the canal recently. It was about 2 weeks ago. And there was tents all over the canal. And there was also a certain element of society, Irish people down there, with their hoodies up, their masks up, and they were going out and they were pushing people out of their tents and throwing the tents in the canal. Now, if there was a lens on that, that's where our focus would be going, and that's where our compassion would be going. So the problem I have with people saying you need to know what's going on in the world, no, I need to know what's going on in my own mind first. I need to protect this. Then I need to make sure my family and my kids are protected. Then I can start looking outside that bubble to my friends and my family. And now if everybody in that whole world is stable and I have compassion for them, and that's where my love and my energy is going, and that's where my productivity and my positivity is going. If I feel like everybody's stable, then I might look out, and then I'll look into where does my energy need to go. And right now, everybody is relatively stable in that bubble. So I've looked out and I'm giving my energy to Barrettstown, to where there's sick kids. But if I keep focusing on everything else that's going on all around the world. I mean, there's millions of things wrong with this world. Just one is Israel. But there's millions of things. If you take all that in subconsciously, you're going to end up having a breakdown. And people are having mini breakdowns that they don't know they're having. And inside their mind, their cortisol levels are just through the roof because they're absorbing all this. So I say, go on a full news detox for minimum a month. I've been on a news detox for about 9 weeks now. Now, you still get the news. That's the gas thing. Even though I've been on a news detox, you still get the news in.
Did you hear about the hurricane?
Yeah.
Did you hear about that? Yeah,
okay.
but
But even still, when I'm driving the car, I'll throw on a radio show and the news will come on. I'll hear 30 seconds of it before I realize, oh, hang on, I'm on a news detox. I've got to turn this off. But I tell you, watch the shift in your mindset if you do that. Like, I know loads of people have done it and they're like, my God.
And then unfollow, I suppose, if you are on social media, unfollow accounts that are constantly giving you news. You don't necessarily have to be fed them.
Well, look, there's some people that I'm following on Instagram who are celebrities, influencers, people I know, people I like, but they've made it their mission to kind of solve the world's problems. And they've gotten so aggressive about it that if you're not on their team, then, they kind of distances themselves from you. That's fine. But I don't want to hear that content. So like what you said, I've unfollowed them. As hard as all that is, because I know some of these people 20 years plus. But, I think we need to really be mindful of what's going in. Because again, you can't unsee it, you can't unhear it, unless you're somebody like me who knows how to unpack subconsciously. And I do know how to unpack. But I think we just have to be way more mindful of where our energy is going.
I suppose the counter argument to that would be, like, if you switch off to everything, then nothing's ever going to be done about the atrocities that are going on in the world. But your counter argument back is, if you don't mind your own mind, then nothing's going to get done ever.
We could argue this, right? But what has changed since everybody is uproared about Israel for the last, whatever it's been, over a year now?
Yeah,
What's changed? Nothing. Your voice, my voice, they don't care. Like, we like to think our voice matters. right? And to a certain extent, some change can sometimes happen with social media. We know that, right? But you know what? We think we're more powerful than we are in our own voice. I'll give an example that I haven't shared. Before I went on my news detox, I was watching what was going on. And do you remember, you may or may not remember, there was a post that was mainly a story on Instagram, and it was all eyes on Rafah.
Yes.
So when Israel bombed Rafah, and there was a lot of people killed and innocent people killed, so I just said to myself, like what you're saying, if I can make some element of change here and maybe put some pressure on, and in my mind, it was just for a ceasefire. That was what was in my head. I thought, well, this is the moment, right? Because this is going viral now and everybody seems to be doing it. So I thought, do you know what? I haven't commented on the war. I like to think of my social media channels as mainly an outlet for positivity and just try and help people. But I thought, look, I'll comment here and I just reshare that. So I did. And do you know what I got is, and this is interesting, because most people wouldn't have gotten this kind of reaction. I have about 10 friends that were born and bred in Israel. Now, most of them are expats. They live in the States, but they were in Israel till they're in their 20s, 30s before they moved to the States. And the reason I have that many friends is because mentalism, what I do, a lot of it was born out of Uri Geller. Do you remember Uri Geller, the spoon bender? So he's from Israel. So there's a lot of Israeli mentalists, hypnotists, and magicians, and they're friends of mine. And I'm sure they wouldn't mind me saying, individually, they all came back immediately and got really angry with me.
Okay.
Like really angry. And I was like, why are you so angry? And then they told me, they said, you're being fed so much propaganda over there and you're all believing it, that Israel is ethnically cleansing Palestine. And people listening to this podcast are all going to, a lot of people are going to say, well, that's true. Mm-hmm. And their argument is, it is not true. That they've lived it. They know the history. And these are level-headed human beings, let me tell you. These are people who have families like me and you. And all I've had with them is smiles and joyous experiences over all the years that I know them. This is the first time they've ever come at me. And I sat there and I thought deeply about that. And I was like, well, and they said that they're being fed propaganda on their end. So there's two levels of cameras going on, two levels of propaganda going on. But their argument was, but we've lived it and we know what's going on. And our friends have been kidnapped. And we know what's going on, Keith. And you don't. And I thought about that and I was like, well, and there was an attack almost. I felt like it was an attack on my personality. And I had to think about that. And I was thinking, well, do you know what? They're kind of right. Like, how much of the history do I really know, bar what I've heard over the last couple of years? Not a lot. Do I have time now to actually research the history of their country, their war, their issues? I don't have time. And I don't think most people do have time to deeply research that. And therefore, how valid is our opinion actually? Now, we could still say it's valid and we got to listen to the UN and this, but I'm listening to my friends who lived it. So it's really more, I found it's way more complicated and nuanced than I realized. So then I realized, well, I've just been attacked. That's affecting my mindset. I'm feeling a bit anxious now because I'm about to lose 10, 12 friends because of a post I put up. So therefore, I've chosen to be very mindful of where my focus goes, where my energy goes, because I just, I don't want to lose those friends or, really, really nice friends. And you might think, well, you should lose those friends for humanity. But then the counter argument to that again is maybe they're right. I mean, am I crazy to think that these people who've lived it are definitely wrong? So I don't know is the answer. So I've chosen, not just because of that, I'm using that as an example, like years ago to be something else. And it's going to be something else in a couple of months. And it's always something else. And it's almost always bad news we're hearing now. And that's affecting our mindset tremendously,
Yeah, because if we're constantly fed bad news, regardless of what that news is, just trying to fall asleep at night with all of those things in our brain is so difficult.
Well, it's crazy. Like the other people that I mentioned, the influencers that I mentioned, like their whole thing now is, it's Palestine, Israel are wrong, yada, 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 right? And they're shoving that down our throats. And then we got my friends and other people shoving other stuff down our throats. And everybody's really aggressive with all of this. And I get the aggression. I get the anger, right? Because, there's tragedy happening. Like we know that, right? But ultimately, I don't think I can help. I'm helping the kids in Barrettstown. I'm putting smiles on their faces. That's where my energy is going. and I'm making meaningful change to them. So, I think, again, it's just so complicated, the world. And it's more complicated than we like to think. We like to think that, okay, we're being fed this news. This news is true. So I'll jump on that team. And now it's Team A versus Team B. And that's where we're at right now. It's like Republicans versus Democrats. Team A, which team are you on? There's no grey area. You're on one of these teams. Here in Ireland, you're Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael. What team are you on? Do you know what I mean? And for me, I'm not on any of these teams now. Like, I'm so apolitical, it's unbelievable. Like, I don't even pay attention to politics anymore because I don't want to get into any of these arguments with people. And again, like, even aside from the news, what is messing our children up? I'm telling you, like, the amount of people that I mention just about kids being messed up, and like, at my keynotes, I would just talk about how detrimental social media is to our children. And then these parents come up to me and go, listen, can you talk to my daughter? Can you talk? And these are powerful business people coming up to me, asking me for the solution for their children. And the first thing I do is say, get them off TikTok immediately. And if it's a big argument in the house, win the argument. Tell them you're the parent. They have to delete TikTok off their phone. Gone. It's not even an option. If the kids are suffering, if the kids are not suffering and they're handling that okay, then that's okay. But if your kid has an eating disorder, is not sleeping, is suffering from anxiety, stress, depression, immediately they've got to get off TikTok, because that is the as far as I can see, the number one detrimental effect on our kids' minds right now. It's having the most detrimental effect,
And it causes arguments in every single house, my own included.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
Just get off that phone, 9:00 at night. No, just need to watch this thing. And
yeah, and I'm a brain hacker, and I'm not going to lie. See, I what I don't like is sometimes people in my space, they put themselves up on a pedestal and they make it look like their life is perfect, and then all of a sudden it all comes crumbling down and everybody's disappointed, right? Listen, like you, I have arguments with my kids about this stuff, but luckily my daughter was 16. She just chose to not, herself, nothing to do with me at all. She chose not to go on TikTok. So that's a win in my household. In my mindset, it's like, wow, she just has the capacity in her head to know that it just won't be good for her, and she just never went on there. She's on Instagram, and she's on, the biggest problem, I think, in the younger generation is their socialization happens through Snapchat. And I'm like, just get off your phone there. She's like, you don't understand, I'm socializing. I was like, what?
I know, and they don't meet as much outside of the house. And I'm trying to explain to my kids, like, my friend Laura used to phone me from her payphone down the road. Yeah. She put like 20p in.
Yeah.
And then she says it was always annoying because my dad would answer the house phone. Yeah. And dad would like stay talking to her for ages. Oh, how's it going?
Yeah.
Brendy, can I just speak to Laura for 30 seconds before I lose my money? So yeah. So even just that concept of, and the way you go to your friend's house and you knock on the door and you stand there waiting for them to come out for you. Like,
That's all gone.
It's like, will you text my friend to see if they're in, mum?
Yeah.
I'm like, or text their mum until they get their own phone. I'm like, would you not just call down? If they're not in, just come back.
Yeah, so those days are gone.
It's changed immeasurably. Yeah, really.
But like, and then my son, like, again, just been open. He's addicted to the Xbox, right? So that's the problem.
How old is he?
12.
Yeah.
So he's the Xbox.
Yours is the same age as mine, roughly.
But I just say distraction is the main thing, right? So mine are both into karate. She does karate 7 days a week. He does karate 5 days a week. He does rugby 3 days a week. And that's, again, we're not pushy parents, believe it or not. If I was a pushy parent, both of my kids be doing magic, right? Yeah. I tried when they were younger. They just weren't into it. So both of my kids, like, they couldn't even do that. That old stupid thing, the finger being split in half. Laura was like this for a moment.
What you were doing there?
Well, my kids can't even do that, right? They're not even able to do that. So ultimately, they weren't into magic, so I never pushed them into it. And in the magic world, that's a problem. You can see a lot of magicians like push their kids hard into magic, and the kids are inherently unhappy. You can see they're unhappy. So we're not pushy parents, but I encourage them to explore a lot of stuff when they were young, and I think that's important, right? So they just explored art and magic and literature and books and music and different styles of things, and then they just found themselves their own lanes. But what's great about that is they can't be on technology when they're training for karate. They can't be on technology when they're playing rugby. And, I see it in my own house in the state. There's teenagers there, and their hobby is posting on TikTok. But they're the ones that have like a lot of difficulty outside of that, because their hobby is not, art or sport or anything else. Their hobby is up on TikTok making these provocative videos at 16 years of age. Do you know what I mean? It's not good. It's not good for them. It's not good for their mindset. Anyway, to get back to it, I think distraction is really key for parents these days. You've got to distract the kids off the tech. You know, we can't stop it. So all we can do is, you know, try and put down the rules and regulations as best we can, which end up in arguments. I'm sure you've had the arguments. I've had the arguments.
Oh yeah, and like I mean, and even though you can have a really calm conversation, this is the time we're going to take the phone off you every evening, and everyone agrees. There's still a fight. Everyone agrees, and then 2 days later, it's like, why are you doing a fight?
Yeah.
You know, so it's always the same. Anyway, I've started playing chess with them. They're all kicking my feckin' ass.
No, but see, that's
brilliant.
brilliant.
I've started to play chess with them. Yeah.
No, see, so this is important. So in our family, we're actually gamers. We ended up being gamers, and I think this was probably purposefully done by me and my wife all those years ago. The younger you can do it, the better. So I just for years I thought chess was this complicated game and I could never manage it. So I just said. They said, what do you want for Christmas? I said, look, I have everything. I'd just love to learn to play chess.
Yeah.
So they bought me a chessboard. I learned chess, I think just from online or something. I learned a couple of moves. And then I taught my wife first, Mairead. And then we taught the kids. So now we all play chess.
Yeah.
It's like that. But it's brilliant. It's a brilliant family thing to do.
And you're using your brain, and they kick your bloody ass because they're using scholars mate on you and you don't know how to defend it. And
They learn the moves then.
They learn the moves.
I just play from like the couple of moves that I learned, the general rules. So I don't know any of the openers or closers or any of that kind of stuff. But to get back to it, gaming, I think gaming is just like board
gaming
games.
Sounds to me like video games.
No,
you need to qualify that.
Yeah,
it's
board games.
Yeah,
so literally I have every board game kind of known to man. So we play Monopoly, the Cheaters Edition, by the way. Oh my God. If you want an argument, go for that.
Really?
So you're allowed to steal from each other and escape the handcuffs and all this. It's hilarious. So Monopoly,
just like the real world then, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're just trying to rob each other all the time, let's be honest with you. So, we play loads of board games all year round. Card games, board games. A good one is Exploding Kittens, if you don't have that. We use that for years. Shithead is a good game. That's a game of cards. You can just find it online. Just type in card game Shithead. So we play that all the time. So yeah, we play lots of board games. And you know what? It's a great family thing to do. But it doesn't need to be just for Christmas. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like last week I just had a quick game of chess with my daughter. A few nights ago, we all just sat down and I said, listen, I got this new game, Chameleon. It says it only takes 20 minutes. I purposely buy games that they tell you how long a game is going to take on the cover. Chameleon, hilarious. We were all arguing and killing each other, but the game is designed to make you argue and kill each other. Because it was really funny the way we were arguing. But people don't do that anymore, you know. And I say it's such a wonderful thing to do because you're creating bond, community. You're talking to real humans across the table, you know.
Yeah, and then you're also learning those non-verbal cues that kids apparently are finding it difficult to pick up on now because if they're looking on their phone and they're not actually interacting with real people.
Well, did you know, shortly after COVID, there was actually people putting on smile clinics because they'd been hiding behind the masks for so long. They were finding it hard to figure out how to smile. So, but you're right. Like some kids are finding it difficult to interact because, you know, they're on the phone so much. When they meet a real human, they're just frozen. You know, so yeah, but even it sounds ridiculous, but even things like Monopoly teach you about money. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But do you know what actually I find too now with young ones these days as well? They've got very poor phone etiquette. Now I mean like picking up the phone and having a conversation. Like my fellas would have up until quite recently. You're talking to them on the phone. If they think the conversation's over, they just hang up. They don't even wait for either of you to say goodbye. Yeah. And I had to go, that's actually really rude. So they don't understand that. And then also, if you've younger people that are working with you, so we have a business, obviously, I have some young people working in it, and they had to get used to me wanting to phone them and have a conversation and them not get panicked about the phone call because it wasn't preempted by a text saying, are you free for a call, and telling them what it was going to be about. Because apparently they get panicked if they don't know what. They need to carefully consider what they're going to be talking about before they actually pick up the phone to you. So my company's basically like, you need to be ready to answer a phone call from Laura 20 times a day. And even they said to me that they had to actually get used to that. You know, they're in their 20s. So it is interesting how the world has changed, that a phone call to younger people can sometimes be something that's quite scary.
Oh yeah, but I never talk to my kids on the phone for that very reason, because I call him and I'm like, how did you, just like, like it's literally that. And I'm like, did you have a good day yesterday? Yeah. Because he, like, for example, he's at the Leinster Munster game at the weekend, just gone, and so like that, called him and said, how was the game? Grand. That is, like, what did you have to eat? Oh, can't remember. I was like, but it was only today. Like, what do you mean you can't remember? Like, but they just basically have no interest in talking on the phone.
Then you get them home and they're just about to go to bed, and then they tell you about some outrageous thing that happened. Some guy pulled out a gun in front of him, and
I don't get that. But I mean, I'd love to get that.
On the way to bed is the big massive story that happened.
I don't get that. Yeah, but Mairead does bedtime with them. Yeah. So not that they need bedtime anymore.
Yeah, but it's the little.
I used to do bedtime when they're younger, but they don't want their daddy at bedtime anymore. I've been demoted from that.
We're talking about bedtime, so we need to know these sleep hacks now, Keith. You have to give some of it away.
Well, look,
so you've told everyone to remove the devices. They remove the news feed from their phones.
So we know all this, right? But here's the thing: you've got to. So most people don't do that. They won't. Like we've all heard a million times, right, from other authors and experts. Like, don't bring the phone into your bedroom. Have the phone turned off. But almost everybody ignores that, and they'll have the phone, and then they're wondering whether they're suffering with their sleep, right? So I thought about that before I wrote this book, and I was thinking, okay, well, you got to get the groundwork done first. You got to get the phone off. You got to get the blue light off. And I was thinking, like, why are people not doing that, right? And it is because we're addicts. Like, we're all addicted. Like, whether we like it or not, we're all cyborgs already. Like, we've got the phones. So you just walk down Dundrum here today and look around at people walking around, and they're staring at their phone walking around. Right? We're all addicts. So how can you get people to commit to not using their phones? And I realised just being tired from lack of sleep, or just being a bit cranky from lack of sleep, is not a good enough reason for people to get better sleep. So in the book, at the start of the book, I get people to find their subconscious why. That's a very powerful motivating factor for finding and attaining good sleep. So to find your subconscious why, you've got to mine into your subconscious mind as to why it is that you want good, solid sleep. And through this system, if you go down through the layers of your subconscious mind to find your subconscious why, everybody will have a revelation. So everybody. So for example, I did this with Keith Earls, the rugby player, a couple of years ago. And his subconscious why turned out to be, it wasn't to like win the World Cup or win the Six Nations. It wasn't to captain Ireland. They'd be the obvious things you might think. Or you might think, oh, well, maybe he'll perform slightly better. No, his subconscious why was to have the acclaim of other players. And that came out through conversations that I had with him. And ultimately, when we defined that granularly, he wanted to win Players Player of the Year. Now, he never thought about that himself before that moment of time. And then I worked with him over the course of a year, and he won Players Player of the Year a year later. And he got really good sleep to make that happen because he knew exactly what his subconscious why was. My subconscious why is very different. My subconscious why is to shut down all the raw sewage pipes, pumping raw sewage into the seas around Ireland. Ishka Éireann will tell you that they're already on top of it. Well, actually, if you look at what's going on, there's still raw sewage being pumped all around Ireland, into seas around Ireland. And that's my subconscious why, is to shut down all of those and to get them properly shut down and then clean up the seas around Ireland. That's a
big subconscious why.
It is, yeah. So, that's mine.
But that's yours. But for other people, it could just literally be like, I want to be able to be awake and happy for my kids every day.
It could just be, I want to be. So I'll give you an example. So somebody, I'm going to say 2 months ago, I worked with a person, and their subconscious why was simply to be at peace with themselves because they'd had a very traumatic kind of childhood and stuff, and it kept coming up time and time again inside their mind, and they wanted just to be, and it kept coming up in nightmares at night, and they just wanted to be at peace with that. Somebody else, it was literally what you've just said. It was just, I want to be a more productive mother, a more productive parent, and I just want to be a more present wife to my husband. A man, not that long ago, he said to me, I just want to not be my father. So, because his father was like a really terrible kind of human being. He realised, though, that he was becoming that from lack of sleep because he was really angry all the time with all the people around him because he was just getting like 3-4 hours sleep a night. And then he realised he was being like his father. He was being like his father to his kids, and he was losing the relationship with his kids. His business was spiralling down the way. So everybody's subconscious will be different. Some people will find a grandiose big one. Like mine is grandiose and big, but it doesn't have to be that. So it can be anything. And then that really become the motivating factor to help you with the two things, consistency and discipline for the techniques. So the techniques in the book, the way they differ, I suppose, is it's written in 3 stages. And you create your own system out of my book. So the first part is the physical. So did you know, like 33, depending on who you listen to with statistics, somewhere between 33% and 47% of Irish people are suffering with chronic pain. right? So they're people who have got pain daily in their body. I'm one of those people. I never realized, I never thought about it really until I wrote the book, but I'm actually a person who's in chronic pain all of the time.
Where's your pain?
Everywhere. When I say everywhere, I mean, I can list off the injuries. So, and a lot of it stems back from a car accident that I was in 2007. I was in a massive car accident. And I got away with just a bad leg for many years, but that bad leg, because I'm off balance all the time, it's coming out in loads of different places now. So I've got impinged, and I've done a lot of big stunts over the years, like escape stunts. So hanging upside down, 150 foot in the air with a straight jacket around me or cling film around my head, and 100-foot rope escapes and trapped underwater. I've done a lot of that stuff. So I've got arthritis in that left ankle, really bad, because I've got a 7-inch plate and 13 screws in that ankle. And then I've got arthritis in that knee. And then I've got a degenerative disc in my lower back. I've got tendonitis in both elbows. I've got a tear and a cyst in my right wrist. I've got impingements under both shoulders.
I'm really sorry I asked you.
So I've got a lot, right? But here's the thing. I'm
that actually affects sleep, though. Pain affects sleep, and then
but actually I'm okay with that. Weirdly, right?
Okay.
I can control pain pretty good with my brain. Like I hypnobirthed Mairead for the birth of her second child. So Braden was a hypnobirth, meaning I hypnotized her for pain management during the birth for him. So,
and did she not actually experience any pain?
She experienced pain, but she was in full control of the pain. So she would tell you the pain was kind of a 2 out of 10.
Really?
Given the fact that it was a natural birth, that's a very low level of pain, So anyway, to get back to it, 33 to 47% of people are in my position. Like they've got a lot of pain. Which
just want to be clear, though, you're not pimping yourself as a hypnobirther for other women's pain.
No more hypnobirths. I actually look back on that as a really stupid moment in life because there was nearly 13 years ago now, and she had a very traumatic birth on Brianna, our daughter, like really bad. And ultimately, that's why she said, I want a natural birth. And, I don't want any epidural, I don't want any painkillers. And I said on a whim, because I was doing a lot of hypnosis then. And I said, sure, I'll just hypnobirth you. It's a thing. It's fine. Yeah. But I had done no research on it. It was 6 weeks out, and
it could have broken your marriage up.
But that's what I'm going to say. Like, it could have been grounds for divorce. It didn't work, but back to it. So but I realize pain is a lot, like nobody talks about this. It's a huge reason people don't sleep, and just a little niggly pain can keep you awake. So the first part of the book addresses that. The physical aspect of sleep, how to relax the physical body in preparations for sleep, and then new kind of dietary advice as well. Because as you'll know, I'm sure you'll have opinion on this one way or the other. I don't know what way Laura's opinion is going to be, but anyway, here we go. Like melatonin, you can't get it in Ireland, right? Across the counter. Which blows my mind, interestingly. I don't really have an opinion for or against it, because I wouldn't necessarily be recommending melatonin, especially because I'm not a medical doctor anyway, or a pharmacist, so I wouldn't be recommending it. I have no real opinion for or against, but we know as a hormone, we need to kick in melatonin for sleep, right? Mm-hmm. It blows my mind, the fact that you can't get it across the counter, but you can walk into Stephen's Green and you can get all these, you can get not just CBD, but I think I heard you talking about it. You can get is it THT or
So sorry. So obviously there's certain cannabinoids that are, anything that has THC in it is illegal over here. But sure, the head shops or the labs are constantly making.
They're making the formulaic version.
Do you know what? Anytime a substance is banned, there's a lab somewhere making another substance that's just a little derivative of it,
fast.
And the regulators just can't keep up with it. So there's all of these things that are
you can't
available.
get melatonin right in Ireland anymore, which is a standard supplement.
I don't think you were ever able to get it. It's prescription only. It's unlicensed. It's prohibitively expensive, and
but all around the world you can buy it.
Well, over in the States you can go into Walmart and buy 10 milligrams for like a $5 of a pack of 100. Like, it is crazy. Yeah. So,
but that aside, right? Did you know, you may know this, but it's kind of new science, and I'm a scientist, so people need to understand I wrote the book from a scientific perspective, and I read some white papers and stuff. So ultimately, 2 kiwis a night. Did you know this? So 2 kiwis, I always say about 3 hours before bedtime, because you want to allow your digestive system to relax in preparation for bed. So none of us should be eating 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, no snacks. You should make sure you go to bed on an empty stomach. But ultimately, 2 kiwis a night promotes the release of melatonin into our systems. I tried this and I couldn't believe it. It really helped my sleep. So I've tried everything in the book.
Oh my God, my friend Eva Harvey, who is a women's health physio, will absolutely love you, because she recommends kiwis for pooing.
There you go, pooing and for your sleep.
So not only would you sleep, you'll wake up and do a nice big dump first thing in the morning.
Yeah,
You feel great.
And a lot of people don't like kiwis, so then I say, okay, 20 cherries a night.
Okay.
So I've put in like just some foods that can really melatonin into your system.
Okay, fab.
But then also some visualizations to help with the physical pain that's in your body. So then I spin from there into the psychological, which is the conscious mind. So there's busy bees. We all have these busy bees. We got anxiety. So I have as an example in the psychological section, I have a visualization called the magic of the black balloon, and that's ultimately whereby you release all of your anxiety and stress from the day into this imagined balloon attached to the top of your head, and you imagine that black balloon just filling with your anxiety and your stress and all the different kind of dark thoughts from the day, and you visualize that being pushed off into the distance. Now here's the crazy thing. If I hooked you up to an ECG machine and I did that, or you did that for like 10 minutes in your bed, I would see, regardless of whether you're skeptical, a believer, non-believer, none of it matters, I will see a change in your brainwave state for the better. I'll see your brainwave state slow down, and your cortisol levels will reduce down, because your mind does not know the difference between visualizing something and actually taking an action. And I put, again, new science in there. The one that was very often cited was the Chicago basketball study. So that's an older study whereby they took 3 basketball teams of equal ability, and for a month, one of the teams sat out training. So they didn't train for a month. A second team, they sat out training, but they visualized themselves training for a month. And then the third team trained as normal. So the team that sat out training, that did nothing, interestingly, their ability didn't increase or decrease. They kind of just stayed the same, because it was only a month, so their ability didn't go down. So the team that trained as normal, their ability went up by 24%. So trained as normal, so their ability increased by 24%. The team that sat out training and just visualized themselves training, their ability increased by 23%. So there's only 1% difference between the team that visualized themselves training versus the team that actually took the action of training. Now, it was only over a course of a month. If you prolong that, of course, these teams that set out training, they'd lose their fitness and so on, right? So you have to actually follow it up by action. But a newer study, which I found fascinating, was they took, I think it was 30 people, but anyway, a number of people who had no wrist problems, but they isolated their wrists for a month. So they put a cast on 30 people's wrists for a month. So they couldn't use their wrist for a month. But 15 of the participants were told to visualize their wrists getting stronger and more flexible, even though they couldn't use their wrist. And the other 15, their wrists were just isolated and they were just told to go about their normal everyday business. At the end of the experiment, you can see what's coming.
Yeah.
The people who visualized their wrists getting stronger, their wrists got stronger.
Even though it wasn't being used?
No, they're fully isolated.
Atrophy of the muscles? Or
No, they got stronger.
Okay.
So that'll just show you the power of our minds. People need to really understand that. So that's why I'm saying the magic of the black balloon alleviates your anxiety, your stress from the day. And then in the third part of the book, which I call the hypno-magical, which is basically the magic of hypnosis. And that's where you ask me, like, what's real magic? Real magic is this part. It's creating new neural pathways by getting inside your subconscious mind. And like, I've got a whole bunch of visualizations for those that get you down into a deep, what you want to do is slow your brainwave state down from what we're in now, which is a beta brainwave state. So we're cognitive, we're aware, we're talking. Then you want to slow it down, your brainwave state down enough that you get down towards deep delta brainwave state. That's your deep sleep. And you'll go through alpha and theta on the way down there. So the psychological part, the second part, that gets you down into alpha theta. And then the third part, which is visualizations for your subconscious mind. Like, I've got a landscape garden visualization in there, which is kind of a sanctuary for your own mind. And that's what we need to do. We need to quiet our minds down, slow our brainwave state down, that we slip off into a nice deep sleep. And then, look, I address other things like what happens when you wake up in the middle of the night. What should you do? That's all addressed in the book as well. Okay, that's good, because
a lot of people do that. And then what about in terms of like alcohol or drugs that people can take to, like, you know, because do you drink?
Yeah.
You do? Okay. So, like, people might take drugs.
You're surprised at that. No, I love drink.
No. You never know, because some people, when they are fully aware of maybe what alcohol might do to their brain, they decide to just go off it.
Yeah.
I like my glass of wine as well, but I am at the stage of life where I'm going, constantly to myself, Jesus, should I just give this up entirely? Because if I have a glass of wine, it affects my sleep that night.
Oh yeah, so a lot of
You
people
know?
it doesn't, like I'm the same as you. So one drink will affect my sleep, and it'll literally really badly affect my sleep. And then if I have a few drinks, it'll just make my sleep even worse.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will think that they get good sleep on alcohol. Like you're literally just passing out. Like you're not actually.
And some
getting
people
good
would smoke
sleep.
a joint to get a good sleep, or take an edible as well, because they find that it helps them sleep. But is that helping them sleep, or is that just
Look, being straight with you, I haven't actually looked into the science of. Like, so alcohol, I looked into it briefly, just because alcohol is legal in Ireland, and look, a lot of people drink, right? Look, if you want to get deep delta brainwave sleep, you shouldn't be drinking, right? It's as simple as that. And I don't mean not drinking at all, but be mindful of the fact that if you're going to drink on a Saturday night, your sleep is not going to be as productive as it would have been the other nights. I've become far more conscious of my relationship with alcohol just in the last couple of months, being honest. And this weekend I didn't drink. I had one non-alcoholic Guinness, and that was it. That was just to kind of feel like I drink a lot of water, right? So I just get bored of it sometimes. So it's just like, and I don't drink Coke or any of that stuff. So it's like, I'll just have a pint of non-alcohol.
You wouldn't even have a cup of tea, misery.
No, well, I have a coffee. You didn't offer me a coffee.
Oh, did you not offer me a coffee?
No, I'm only messing. I had coffee before I came here. We've got to be mindful of our coffee consumption as well. I love coffee, but you should have your coffee. I mean, your last coffee should definitely be before 2:00.
Yeah.
Because, the half-life of coffee can be anywhere up to 12 hours, meaning at midnight you could still have half the level of caffeine that you had 2:00 that day or whatever. So, but back, like, I'd be more interested in your opinion on, like, because I'm sure you looked into it, just because I know.
I'm hugely interested in all kinds of drugs. I know people that
cannabis, like, what does it do? Like, is it good for sleep?
Well, I know people that would
the conversation needs to be way more open about this. Like the fact that cannabis is illegal in Ireland, that actually also blows my mind completely.
Yeah,
because
I know.
It does have medicinal properties. It is good for people with pain. So the fact that, people are still smoking in Ireland legally, but they can't have a joint, I think there's a huge
even alcohol.
there.
Like alcohol kills more people than cannabis ever has.
For sure.
On all of those things. But, it harkens back to all that war on drugs back in the days.
Yeah, we need to reopen that conversation.
Absolutely. So in terms of for sleep, but it's like sedatives. So I remember being in college, and the head of pharmacology, he was big into psychiatry too. And I remember we were going through the whole sleeping tablets and what they do and how people can take sedatives and just they get. And I remember asking him, how good is it though that if people are taking sedatives all the time? And he said, well, it's a hell of a lot better than people not sleeping.
Yeah.
So, but I know the issues that people can have with sedatives or cannabis or drugs that make them fall asleep is they can become dependent on it.
Yeah.
So that's the issue, I suppose. And I know people that take it to switch off. I know people that do, and it's part of their lives that they do. But I suppose the answer there is that if it is a case of the only way to get a good night's sleep is that now some people need to take prescribed drugs for it because that's the only way they can get through it, and that's perfectly okay too. But the body can become dependent, and then it means that you find it more difficult to get to sleep yourself, and then it's like this vicious cycle.
Yeah, and very often they stop working then after a certain period
or you need
time.
more, you need a higher level of them. You need to take 1.5 tablets.
Like with the cannabis, I know a lot of people definitely would 100% that would have been way more successful individuals if they weren't smoking cannabis. Do you know what I mean?
This is it. It slows the brain down in a lot of ways.
Well, they take it for sleep to start with, but then they end up having the odd bit here and there during the day, and then they're not as productive. But that's not everybody, right? Like I know, listen, Woody Harrelson was a friend of mine. I worked on the Now You See Me movies. Now You See Me 1, Now You See Me 2. I got very close to Woody. Woody's a very open cannabis smoker and a proponent of cannabis. I mean, at the end of the day, he's one of the biggest stars in the world. He's very productive on it. Do you know what I mean? So
this is it.
But
all
courses,
our brains are so different. And obviously the worry there is if younger people are taking them before their prefrontal cortex is fully developed, that's when there can be the issues with severe mental health issues and that. But I've spoken on this podcast many times before about the whole cannabis thing with another pharmacist actually who's absolutely for it being been legalized,
Yeah.
but all the stakeholders have to come on board, and it's one of those. Do you know what? It deserves a series in and of itself. The whole ins and outs of all of that. But I was just wanted to ask you what your thoughts are if you address that in this book.
Not with the cannabis, but with alcohol. You know, we've got to be mindful of our consumption of alcohol, and I think we all know that. Though, you know,
I know.
Like now,
it's this love-hate relationship that we have.
Well, some people will say, "Oh, I have a glass of wine; it helps me to get asleep." But they need to be aware that if it helps get you asleep, like I actually had this conversation just 3 days ago with a client of mine, and at one stage he was drinking a full bottle of wine every night to get asleep, and he did that for about a year. He told me he had a lot going on in his life, very successful individual, and then he realised, obviously, you know, that was just going to catch him in the end. So he fixed that himself. But very often you will find people who have one glass of wine a night, and they think, you know, my granny did that or my auntie did that. But like, yeah, but it's not getting you the quality of sleep for rest and repair, you know. So you might be sleeping, but your body's not repairing.
Well, I don't think that you go into as long a rapid eye movement sleep, which is the important.
Yeah, exactly.
And it affects your deep sleep. So it's an interesting topic, isn't it? Well, sleep in general, I just know from the pharmacy and I'm working in there for so long, it was the main thing that affected people, and that's why, you know, that's why I went off and developed my own brand, and that's, you know, why I talk about online a lot, because sleep is the main thing that affects people. And if you can't square that off, it just has a knock-on effect of every part of your day. There's no point in looking for something to improve your energy levels if you're actually not trying to get sleep the night before either.
But that's why, like, I wasn't a great sleeper until I had my car accident, and then I was a really bad sleeper after the car accident because I was in so much pain, and then I realized I have to figure this out, you know, because if I don't figure this out, like I was going like night and day, just like a zombie going around. And listen, because of what I do as well, like I've no schedule. You know, people very often say, you just get on a sleep schedule. But a lot of people are like me. They don't have a schedule. I can't have a schedule because, you know, last weekend I was in the TF Royal in Castlebar. I drove up, 2.5 hour drive up, set up the show, did a meet and greet after the show, drove home 2.5 hours, got into bed at 2:30 in the morning. But then I woke back up at 7:30. Having just got 5 hours of sleep. And I'm a person who's written a book on sleep, right?
Yeah.
But so it's important, again, that I'm open about this. But then I knew what to do. And like I put on binaural beats next to my bed. So quick hacks for people without having to buy the book. Like the number one go-tos for me. 2 kiwis, a couple hours before bedtime. Binaural beats. So binaural beats, you can just get them on YouTube. You just type in binaural beats. A lot of people have apps out there, Calm and all that. You don't need these apps, right? So ultimately, if you type in binaural beats onto YouTube, you can get a 9-hour block of what's called binaural beats with no ads. So there's an ad at the top end for 3 seconds. And then after that, you got 9 hours. And ultimately, binaural beats, it's a type of music whereby you're playing 2 different frequencies into the brain simultaneously, and your brain then hallucinates a third frequency, which basically slows your brainwave state down again, which is what we want to happen.
What do the beats sound like?
Here, I'll pull it up my phone and I'll just play it but it's just very gentle kind of music, and your microphone will pick this up. But ultimately, that's a big hack for the people who wake up in the middle of the night.
Okay.
So I'm that person. I'm the person who falls asleep straight away, but I wake up in the middle of the night. Okay. Sometimes it's to go to the toilet, but sometimes I just wake up. So when I woke up a couple of nights ago, when I say a couple of nights ago, it was 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30, but I'd only got 5 hours and I had to go again the next night. I put on binaural beats and it put me straight back to sleep, and I got an extra 2.5 hours sleep. That's massive in my world. Yeah. But again, I have no schedule. Like this week I'm traveling to London. I've got 2 events in London. I get back, Wexford, performing there. So my point is, not everybody has the ability to put in a good sleep schedule. So you have to work around what your schedule is. So if I pull it up here, it sounds like this. We might get an ad here for a second at the top end. Oh no, this is it. Now you should technically have a headset on to listen to that, because once you put the headset on, the frequencies go in at different frequencies into different ears. I don't bother. Now, I don't have my phone on next to the bed. I just have it on Wi-Fi and have it face down next to the bed, so there's no light bleeding out. So when I go into the bedroom, it is a rule of mine, I don't go onto my phone. I bring the phone into the bedroom just for that, for the binaural beats. Now,
And can Mairead fall asleep to that too then?
Yeah,
or do
she
you know
doesn't mind it at all. No,
Okay.
she's fine with it. Now, the one that does annoy her is you can, if you don't want the phone in your bedroom at all, which is like a really good habit, is to not even bring your phone in. You can go onto Amazon and you can get a version of that on a little unit that plugs into your wall, meaning it's not your phone and there's no light bleeding out from this source at all. However, the sounds out of that are not as good as that. So when I put that on, she's like, turn that off. What is that? So she likes the one off YouTube, but not so it's different people, different sounds, you know.
So worth anyone trying that out anyway.
It's brilliant. So yeah, Kiwis, binaural beats, and then any visualization that you can do. But like the visualizations that I do are very particular to the book. And I also have those as audio downloads on my website. So if you don't want to do them yourself, I basically have hypnosis audio that you can listen to of me to go asleep. So, for example, Rory Best, ex-Ireland rugby captain, he came to me for a couple of different issues when he was playing. And the first thing I said to him was, what's your sleep like? And it turns out he'd never gotten 7 hours of sleep in his life. And I did the research then, you know, as a scientist does, and it turns out athletes are about 20% more prone to injury if they don't get 7 hours of sleep. So, you know, when an athlete twists their ankle, they think it's just a twisted ankle. But ultimately, that ankle twist could have come from them not getting productive sleep.
Okay.
So the first thing I did with him anyway was to fix his sleep. And one of the audios that I did with him, one of the hypnosis audios that I did with him is one of the audios attached to the book. And he now has slept for the last, whatever it is, 8 years. Every single night, 7 hours. He came to the launch of the book and he basically said, like, I've slept every night for the last 7 years. And I don't say it's because of me. I'm just a guide to share information with people, and then they do it for themselves. So you pick one section from each part of the book, and then you combine those into your own system that you try for 21 days. I've yet to find, by the way, somebody who hasn't benefited, actually to a large extent, by doing that over the 21 days. And then you tweak it. So you take out a section and put a different section in. Then you find out, can you get deeper sleep again? So you do that for a couple of months, and ultimately you'll find a system that works for you. And that's kind of the structure of the way I wrote the book, you know.
And do you believe that, you know, like some people say, I can survive on 4 hours sleep?
I was that guy. I talk about that in the book.
Okay.
So, you know, I've done many TV shows over the years. Like, honestly, now I've done hundreds. Like,
right.
People don't understand. Like, I've actually done hundreds of my own TV shows, hundreds of hours. And I look at some of them and I cringe. I cringe because I remember being in those moments, being, you know, sleep when you're dead, you know, and just being so invested in my work. But then my work ended up being not that good. When I look back at it, it would have been a lot better if I'd actually been getting good sleep and thinking clearly, as opposed to being sleep when you're dead and I'd be up working on the show, and I thought it was just superhuman. And this was mainly in my kind of 20s. And I look back on some of those TV shows and I feel kind of sad, because I think they could have been a lot better if I'd just been sleeping better and thinking more clearly. And so, you know, I remember hearing a statistic one time, you know, do you know what the chances are of you being productive on 5 hours sleep or less? Somebody said this. So the chances of being like mega productive, like being like 100% productive on 5 hours sleep or less, the chances of that are less than 0%. It doesn't exist. Meaning, like, all these things that people cite of, you know, Maggie Thatcher and all, it's all rubbish. It's all been like debunked. We all need good sleep. It does vary how many hours. So through my research, everybody should be getting at least 6. Some people need, you know, people say, I need 8 hours. They could be right? So it's somewhere between 6 and 8. Also, having too much sleep can have a detrimental effect. That's been proven. So you've got to watch it. Like, a lot of people get 10 hours sleep. Like, they're lucky. They feel like they're lucky. But actually, that can have a counterproductive effect on their health. So you want to make sure they're not getting too much sleep either.
I don't think anyone here that's listening to this podcast is getting too much sleep.
Yeah.
So don't you worry, guys. Don't you worry. I doubt it. But doesn't it beg the question, and I'll end on this as well. We have our poor bloody doctors working, and, you know, particularly when they're junior docs, and they are working hours and hours.
That's wild,
and on call and everything, and the sleep that they're not getting, and the calls that they're expected to make when they're on the job, sleep deprived.
Crazy.
It's absolutely outrageous. and I have friends that have done it. I have family members that have done it. It's just crazy.
And self-employed people are really guilty of this. Like I was guilty of it for a long time. I've gotten much better in the last number of years. Way, way better at like just switching off. And do you know what? Here's what's interesting. I was talking to somebody the other day. He wears a Whoop. I don't wear a Whoop, right? A lot of people are into the Whoop. I think it's a very useful device. I just don't want to live my life that structured. I want that spontaneity. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to look at the glass of wine on a Saturday night and find that I've had terrible sleep. I know it's not going to be good for me, so I'm still going to have it anyway.
I'm a bit like you. Those things just annoy me. I actually went and bought a heart rate monitor
all that
and
stuff.
a watch strap as well after get my VO2 max. I'm going to improve my VO2. Do you know what? For me...
Yeah. We've
life's just too short.
But this guy, I agree. I'm on your team, right? But this guy, he's got the Whoop, and he's in the top 1% of sleepers, and he doesn't bring this is amazing to me. This is a mega successful individual, like really, really successful, and he doesn't bring work home after 6 o'clock.
I love that.
Now I'm guilty of working after 6, but then again, I work in the States, and sometimes when they're waking up, I've got to stay awake and stuff. But I do think there's a lot for the devices as well. I think if you're going to use a device, though, my advice with using any of those devices would be to use it for a set period of time until you recognize what your triggers are and then get rid of it. I think, again, like what you said, life is definitely kind of too short to be just that regimented, right? But we need to be aware but not regimented. But there was one thing I was trying to think of where I was going as well, is I would love, maybe you can help me with this, right? Do you know what I'm searching for in Ireland?
Go on.
Is a functional medicine doctor. So these are doctors who actually take 15 minutes with you rather than 5 minutes. And in that 15 minutes, their first port of call is they'll ask you, how's your sleep, Keith? How's your diet? Here's what I would recommend that you do before I give you any antibiotics, any medicine at all. And then if that doesn't work, then they'll give you medicine. They'll give you tablets and they'll tell me to see a pharmacist, right? But so I see a lot of these functional doctors in America. So they combine diet, health, nutrition, sleep in order to help people and aid people's health. And then they also have like real medicine and,
there are a few actually. I can signpost you to them. There are a few. But I suppose, like what you said, doctors have such little time to see people.
Yeah, but that's a problem, though.
Oh, it is. It's a huge problem. It's a problem for them, and it's a problem for their patients too.
But I remember, I never researched this properly. I'm going to do it today, right? So I'm going to research this today. I remember a long time ago I read this, and there's this thing that they do in China. Doctors do in China. So you pay them a retainer every month. So you pay your doctor every single month, and they keep you well. That's their job. And when you get sick, they don't get the retainer. So they have to get you better as fast as humanly possible for you to keep paying them. I think it's a great model.
So this is another podcast for us. Sure, I travelled around India and studied Ayurvedic medicine and traditional Chinese medicine and was massively into that. And that's why I brought out the products that I have. So it's I'll get you on now and we'll have another big chat about that.
I'd love that.
But there's practitioners here in Ireland too. But can you tell people where we can get your book, Keith?
Look, Sleep Hacks, it's only out the last 2 weeks. It is in all good bookstores. So, your Eason's, your Bookstation, your Dubrays, all around Ireland. And
can we get it online as well?
Yeah, all of them are selling it online. You can do it through my Instagram page. I've got a link tree up in the bio on my Instagram page.
Fab.
So all the different outlets are up there. And Sleep Hacks, sleep well. And there's a copy for you now, Laura.
Thank you so much. I'm going to take it home
tonight.
now and read that. And I bought my loops as well. Someone told me to buy loops. Loops are these special earplugs for if you have snoring partners. Anyway, that's another... Again,
loops. I haven't heard of those.
They're special earplugs apparently that can help if you are a little kept awake at night by someone that snores. I'll let you know. I'll let you know for another discussion. Keith, what piece of advice would you give young people today?
Oof. I mean, I could sit here for an hour talking to young people. I think. Okay, let's go 3 things. Right. So, advice for young people. First of all. I know it's difficult, but limit your intake of social media. You won't believe the amazing effect it'll have on your brain by just reducing your consumption of it. Get out there, meet real people and have conversations. And then thirdly, this is the most important one in my mind, reconnect with nature. Like teenagers, kids, they're just not getting out to nature enough, and like just getting into the woods, getting into the forest, going to the beach, going to the sea all year round, just have an amazing effect on their brains.
And what?
Oh, sorry, can I add a fourth one in?
Go on.
Find and follow your passion. Like that's what I did, and not a day goes by for me that I'm not excited and curious about my life, because I found my passion early in life. And I was lucky I stumbled across my passion, but I still would have found a passion that I would have followed. And what I mean by that is take time. Take time to not just fall into the trap of modern life. Find your passion and then follow that passion, regardless of what it is, because life's just too short. So find and follow your passion, for sure.
And what's the meaning of life?
Have fun.
I love it.
That's it. Like, life's too serious these days. Everyone's getting too serious. You know, I wake up in the morning and I'm just like, I can't, like, listen, my kids cringe. I'm screaming out the door at them, going, you know, I'm saying, never give up, have a great day. And half the time I'm in my pajamas and their friends are there, like, Dad. And then I'm in my ice bath and I'm jumping in the sauna and I'm telling my bad dad jokes. Like, you know, why does a squirrel swim backwards, Laura?
I don't know.
To keep its nuts dry. So
my 11-year-old would love that.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just having the crack all day long. And listen, I have serious moments, I have arguments. You know, I can go fully red sometimes myself. I'm not saying that I can't, but I'm looking for more good days than bad days, more positive days than non-positive days, more productive days than non-productive days. And you can program your mind for that. So the meaning of life for me is just, look, have fun along the way.
It has been an absolute pleasure, Keith. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.